You're listening to The Bible Guys, a podcast where a couple of friends talk about the Bible in fun and practical ways.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to The Bible Guys.
Hi, Chris.
Hi, Jeffrey.
Man, it's good to be here.
Yeah.
Jeffrey.
Jeffrey. Yeah, you can call me Christopher if you'd like.
Christopher?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we are here today wrapping up the story of David and Absalom and his rebellion. But before we get into that, we are going to do a segment that Desiree has prepared for us called...
Would You Rather?
Would You Rather? And I like these. These are great.
Would you rather?
You have to choose.
Okay.
So you want to just take turns reading them?
Okay. Ready?
Yep.
I haven't read any of these. Would you rather have a personal soundtrack that plays your life's background music or a narration that describes your every action in a dramatic voice?
Wow.
I think we've had different personal soundtrack questions before.
We have.
But this is
very
adding
specific.
a narration that describes your every action in a dramatic voice. Because we've chosen soundtrack before.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I said bad to the bone.
Yeah, narration that describes your every action.
Yeah, I would have to go with the music because music is more tolerable than a constant voice.
Yes.
Right?
I don't know. I like the voices in my head. We're pretty good friends.
Shh, calm down. What? What did he say? Do what to him?
I know. I smell it too.
That's funny. That's great.
Okay. I think I would choose, although having the voice would be fun, I think I would choose the music as well.
Yeah, the music is
over time
is
it's
the
more
winner.
tolerable.
All right, number 2. Would you rather have to always speak in rhymes? Oh, geez. Or only to be able to communicate through dad jokes?
Oh, it's rhymes for sure.
Yeah, it has
rhymes
to be rhymes
for sure.
Well, because rhymes are you can
I drop rhymes like dimes.
Oh, jeez.
No?
Hey, what do you say?
No,
he says, you have a gift for rhyme. Yes, some of the time.
Some of the time.
Right?
Yeah, that's right.
No more rhymes now, and I mean it.
Anybody want a peanut? Yeah. Princess Bride? Yep, there you go.
So it'd have to be rhymes. You know why? Because you could still be intelligent.
That's correct.
And intellectual through rhymes.
Yes.
So,
well, would you rather live in a world where it rains food once a week or where it snows candy once a year?
Oh, no question. Rain in a world where it rains food.
Wait, hang on a minute. Go ahead and finish that.
Yeah. It has to be rains food.
You literally tried to answer the question while you were yawning.
Yes. Hey, did you ever see the movie Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs?
I don't think so.
It's an animated.
I know about it. I just don't think I've ever seen it.
So this guy invents something. He puts it up into the clouds, and then it uses the moisture in the clouds to produce food. Or he has a remote control. So anyway, it rains food, then it gets out of control. But basically, that was the premise behind it. And I think I would like that.
You'd rather have it rain food once a week?
The right kind of food.
The right kind of food? Yeah. I would totally choose snow candy once a year.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah. I'm a candy guy.
Well,
I like chocolate.
I'm not a candy guy.
I'm a chocoholic.
Well,
and the first step to recovery is admitting it. But I have no intention to recover. So
you know that the other day I came home and apparently my wife had made a dark brownie chocolate brownie with chocolate chunks and then chocolate chips on top of that, and had set a piece out. My son even made a little note and said, "For Dad," and I felt obligated to eat it because it said "For Dad."
Yeah, I eat all of the brownies in our house by obligation too.
Yes. But anyway, I took one bite of it. And it had chocolate chunks and chocolate chips, and it was dark chocolate. And I one bite of it, and I was like, I have to throw this away. I cannot stomach this chocolate.
Wow.
So I had to get rid of it.
Okay.
So
I'm pretty sure you're not a Christian.
I'm pretty sure you and I are very different.
You can't go to heaven
in that area. All right, here we go.
Okay.
Is this me reading?
That's you, yeah.
Okay. Would you rather wear a sign that says, I'm awkward everywhere you go, or have everyone around you suddenly forget how to talk? What?
So everybody around you can't talk.
Forgets how to talk. So you walk into a room and everybody's like, "Who's the
Yeah.
What is happening?
Well, or you just have to wear a sign that says "I'm awkward."
That's the question?
That's the question.
That is such a wild and weird question.
What would you rather?
I would definitely have to go with the awkward.
Yeah, I don't think you have to wear the sign, though.
What do you mean? Oh,
Everybody
whatever.
knows. Everybody knows.
According to this, I'd have to wear it.
You have to wear the
everywhere I
sign.
go.
Yeah. I think that would be far more functional. Your life would be more functional.
Yeah, you'd have to just explain it away once. And then
I lost the
move
bet.
on.
I have to wear the sign the rest of my life.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay. And then number 5, would you rather be famous for your cooking skills but never be able to eat again,
Ooh.
or be known for your singing voice but only be able to sing off key? What?
If you don't eat again, you die, Desiree.
Well, there's that.
Hey, you know how it should read?
Uh-huh.
Would you rather be famous for your cooking skills but never be able to eat again and live a month?
Yeah. Or never be able to eat your own food again.
But it doesn't say that.
No, I know, but you also said other things it didn't say. Live a month. What I'm saying is, if you want to correct that one,
Well, that's what it means.
be famous for your cooking skills but never be able to eat your own food again is really the issue.
Okay, I said live a month because that's the ultimate conclusion of what she said.
I know, but it's, yeah.
All right, so
obviously we have to choose a singing voice but only be able to sing off key. Because,
yeah.
there's no requirement to sing.
Right.
Right.
But you have to
You
eat.
just quit singing.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. But be known for it, though.
Yeah, everybody's like, oh, Jeff, just sing. Sing one more time, Chris. Like, I gave it up.
No.
Actors are
wait
famous
a
for
minute.
acting and then quit acting.
I read this as you're famous for being bad.
Well, you're famous for your singing voice,
Right.
but only able to sing off key.
Right. In other words, like you're famous, like remember those old American Idol auditions where they would highlight the bad ones?
Yeah.
That's how I read it.
Okay. I don't know.
Where
Yeah,
you became like really, really bad.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. I'd
Yeah.
still rather have that because, the other one is extremely limited to about 30 or 40 days.
Yeah, that's right. And by the way, I started to get excited for you at the beginning of this question because it says, would you rather be known for your cooking skills, be famous for it? And I was like, oh, this is for Jeff.
Yeah.
I got excited for you
never
for a
be able
second.
to eat again.
Yeah. Then I thought, oh, that's not him.
That's not it.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the eating side of things.
Which is why you're a fan of the cooking side of things. Does anybody ever become a fan of cooking if not for eating?
I don't know. I like it.
All right, time to move on. Hey, and by the way, speaking of cooking, this story is really cooking up.
We've been cooking up a big ending. Once again, our skills are going through the roof.
Yes.
Our ability.
Transitional segues are our forte. Terrible.
Okay.
We should do that from now on. Come up with the worst segues ever.
Dad joke segues is essentially what it is.
It's really funny.
Yeah. Okay. That was terrible. So here's what we have. This young man, Absalom, decides he's going to commit a coup against his dad. He has very long hair. He's a very handsome man. David, his armies finally have to square off against him, even though he doesn't want to fight him. And Joab winds up killing Absalom because Absalom's hair gets caught in a tree. And they find him and they go and
stab him to death. And he dangled.
He dangled. Yes. That's a biblical word.
It is.
So then here's what happens. Because David had said, go ahead and fight, but just be gentle with my son.
Right.
And then Joab, one of the generals, kills David's son.
In a very non-gentle way.
Yes. Less than gentle.
Very much less than gentle.
Yes. So 2 Samuel chapter 18, verse 19 says, Then Zadok's son Ahimaaz said, Let me run to the king with the good news that the Lord has rescued him from his enemies. No, Joab told him, it wouldn't be good news to the king that his son is dead. You can be my messenger another time, but not today. Then Joab said to a man from Ethiopia, Go tell the king what you've seen. The man bowed and ran off. This guy doesn't know what David does.
You disposable guy.
Yeah. But Ahimaaz continued to plead with Joab, Whatever happens, please let me go too. Why should you go, my son? Joab replied. There will be no reward for your news. Yes, but let me go anyway, he begged. And Joab finally said, All right, go ahead. So Ahimaaz took the less demanding route by the way of the plain and ran to Mahanaim ahead of the Ethiopian. Well, hey, that's saying something when anybody can beat an Ethiopian in the long run.
Yeah, no
Because Ethiopians
kidding.
are famous and have been famous for those long runs. So this guy beats him by a less demanding route. While David was sitting between the inner and outer gates of the town, the watchman climbed to the roof of the gateway by the wall. As he looked, he saw a lone man running toward them. He shouted the news down to David, and the king replied, If he is alone, he has news. As the messenger came closer, the watchman saw another man running toward him. He shouted down, "Here comes another one." The king replied, "He also will have news. The first man runs like Ahimaaz, the son of Zadok," the watchman said. "He's a good man and comes with good news," the king replied. Then Ahimaaz cried out to the king, "Everything is all right." And he bowed before the king with his face to the ground and said, "Praise to the Lord our God, who has handed over the rebels who dared to stand against my lord the king." "What about young Absalom?" the king demanded. "Is he all right?" Ahimaaz replied, "When Joab told me to come, there was a lot of commotion, but I didn't know what was happening." "Wait here," the king told him, so Ahimaaz stepped aside. Then the man from Ethiopia arrived and said, "I have good news for my lord the king. Today the Lord has rescued you from all those who rebelled against you." "What about young Absalom?" the king demanded. "Is he all right?" The Ethiopian replied, "May all of your Ethiopian..."
Wow.
I just realized I said Ethiopian wrong, and then my brain corrected it after I got past it. Let me say it again. And the Ethiopian replied, "May all of your enemies, my lord the king, both now and in the future, share the fate of that young man." The king was overcome with emotion. He went up to the room over the gateway and burst into tears. And as he went, he cried, "Oh, my son Absalom, my son Absalom, if only I had died instead of you. Oh, Absalom, my son, my son." Wow. Isn't that hard?
Yeah, it's tough.
It's a tough one.
Yeah, I hate that.
Well, there you go.
I hate that.
Yep.
Yeah. So, so there's a note here in the Life Application Study Bible, which we promote, although we get no money for that.
That's right.
They should sponsor the Bible, guys. Don't you think by now?
Yep, they should.
All right. But anyway, it says, why was David so upset over the death of his rebel son? Number one, David realized that he, in part, was responsible for Absalom's death. Nathan the prophet had said that David had killed Uriah. His own sons would rebel against him. Number two, David was angry at Joab and his officers for killing Absalom against his wishes. And number three, David truly loved his son, even though Absalom did nothing to deserve his love. It would have been kinder and more loving to deal with Absalom and his runaway ego when he was younger.
Yeah.
Which is what we've already covered, right?
Right.
So I just think that it's just tragic all the way around. I mean, think about all three of those fronts. We've talked about it before. I honestly believe that there are signs and hints of David completely having this godly perspective of knowing that it was his sin a long time ago that put this into motion. And so, you know, David just has no choice but to feel completely responsible, not just as the commander of the army, but a person who decided to rebel against God. And then all of a sudden these consequences come along, you know, and here they are, just consequences of his, you know, think about the different sins that we do. Sometimes we have a sin in our life or a mistake in our life that only affects one relationship, you know, because it's an offense against that person or something like that. And then there's, you know, things that we do in our lives that somehow involve all of our families sometimes, right?
Yeah.
And then there's things that we do sometimes in our lives that involve, let's just say if we're like a prominent leader, right? I mean, we just read something from a church in our area that something bad happened, remember?
Sure, yeah.
And all of a sudden you're thinking, oh, how many lives that can affect?
Right.
And then think about the king or the president of a nation, right? Who does this wicked thing, and that person is supposed to be known as a person who loves God, a person who's responsible for leading everybody spiritually, and all of a sudden he has a sin, and now the consequences of those kinds of sins affect the entire nation. And so here's David who does this wicked thing by killing Uriah, taking Bathsheba as his queen, does it in front of the entire nation, and then all of a sudden gets called out. And then the nation gets to witness the curse played out. Think about that.
Yeah.
So the entire nation, those who really love God, those who are paying attention, all the grandmas who are sitting beside the fire, you know, and the grandfathers, they're looking at their families and they're saying, you do realize what's happening here, kids, don't you?
Right.
And they're laying it out. And so David has no choice but to think about all of that. And so it's just sad on so many fronts, you know?
Yeah. Did Nathan say that was a curse? I was just thinking about this.
Well, he said your sons will rebel against you.
Yeah, was that prophetic?
Well,
so a curse is,
sure.
It must happen. It's the will of God that must happen, as opposed to.
Are you asking about the term curse?
Yes.
Okay.
Right. So God didn't force this thing to happen, and Absalom wasn't required to do it to fulfill the curse.
Well, I do know this.
Instead, it was a prophetic thing that God said, "I know what's going to happen now because of this bad choice."
In previous podcasts, we both have said
referred that it was a curse.
It was a curse.
I know, but that's what I'm questioning right now.
Yeah, and then also. I know for a fact that we read a note in the Life Application Study Bible, and they viewed it as a curse.
Sure. Yeah, it says, so back there in 2 Samuel chapter 12, so here's the answer. Verse 11, it says, "This is what the Lord says, because of what you've done, I will cause your own household to rebel against you."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
well,
you did it secretly, and I will make this happen to you.
So the question is, can't curse be used interchangeably in something like that?
Well, so I think it is a curse then. Yeah, that's what I was asking. As opposed to prophetically, if God was just looking in the future and going, because you did this, it's going to cascade down, and this is it's going to happen. Your son is going to. Instead, what God's saying is, I turned your son against you.
Yeah, well, doesn't it also say something else after that in 2 Samuel? It says, and then all of your children will live by the sword.
And he also said that he's going to sleep with your wives.
Oh.
Remember that? Publicly.
He predicted that.
He predicted Absalom. That's what I was getting to.
Oh, wow. I didn't even piece that together.
Yeah, I remember
that now.
Yeah.
Because it's something that you want.
Weird
right. I want to forget it. Whenever I read it, I want to forget it.
Right.
Like you hear something like that and you're like, ugh, and you just sort of want to just put that out of your mind. At least I do.
Right.
And so it's like, and so that's why I'm like, oh, yeah, I didn't even piece that together. He predicted that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it'd be in public view. You did this in secret, and it's going to come out in the public. So this was kind of a foreordained thing. It was going to happen.
Yeah.
But Absalom, it's a shame, because on the same side, Absalom didn't have to do these things, right? So God knew it was going to happen. That's what God is saying, is all these horrible things are going to happen. But Absalom was doomed from the beginning because David was still God's anointed. Remember when David refused to kill Saul when Saul was in the cave?
Yeah.
Or he refused to kill Saul while Saul was out in the field sleeping, and he comes up to him, and instead he just cuts off the edge of his robe and then shows him, right? David was like, I'm not going to touch the Lord's anointed. I'm not going to mess around with the one God chose. If God put him in that place, then God's going to take him out of that place. It's not my responsibility to go take him out. But Absalom decided, my dad doesn't have the courage to lead. I'm going to take him out. Right? And he decided to raise his hand. But God hadn't announced yet that Absalom was the one. Absalom was the heir apparent. That throne was Absalom someday. Right?
Yeah.
And he decided he was going to go do the right thing the wrong way. I kind of have compassion on Absalom a little bit on the front end of it, going, you didn't bring judgment against my brother.
Right.
My stepbrother comes and rapes my sister, and you didn't do anything about it. And so I am the blood avenger. I'm the one that's going to come, and I'm going to bring judgment when you can't. And so he sees weakness, and he decides he's going to rise up. And he could have justified his behavior by saying, nature abhors a vacuum, right? Mm-hmm. And leadership vacuums usually cause somebody to go, I'm going to be the one that steps into that spot.
Right.
But you weren't the one chosen yet. You were the future king. You're not the current king. And he was doomed from the beginning because God had said that he was going to give David a long reign. God had already said that his kingdom would last. Eventually, so it's possible to do the right thing the wrong way is what I'm saying. And I feel bad for Absalom in this way. David was in this decade of just abdicating his responsibility and passivity. He doesn't mentor his son. He doesn't pull his son in when his son is willing to come home. He just doesn't do the right things by his son. And his son is a leader and steps in and fills a leadership vacuum, brings judgment against his stepbrother. He does all the things. You can totally see how Absalom justifies his behavior. Yeah. If I don't do it, nobody's going to do it. And usually that's going to lead to a terrible catastrophe. And that's what happens in this situation. And so here's David grieving for so many reasons. Yeah. It's centered on Absalom, but he's grieving over so many missed opportunities, and it's such a sad story here. Yeah, and I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine losing Amnon, and then facing,
your daughter Tamar being completely disgraced,
Yeah.
and then now losing Absalom, and I just feel so bad because think about it. If you were very successful and were totally rich and powerful in some sort of industry, and your family was in ruin, you being a Christian and a man of faith, you would consider that a fail, a complete fail. So it's like I remember one time there was a guy who lived across the street from me, and he would blow his driveway every day, and we would talk, and he had all this money, and he was talking about moving out of our neighborhood and getting this mansion, and talking about being a millionaire by the time he was like 30. And he was making so much money, and he had the coolest job with security and everything else. And I remember we invited him over one time, and we were just, in our 20s as youth pastors. And he comes over with a bottle of wine, as a gift coming over. He didn't know us, and at the time, anyway, doesn't matter. So he comes in, and I'm thinking, man, this guy's awesome. I mean, he was good looking, man. He was like muscular. He's a security guy, and I remember walking him out, and I said, "Gosh, man," I said, "It must be nice to be you," or I said something like that. And he looked at me and he said, "Are you kidding me?" And all he did was talk about his wife and his kids and his home life being not great at all. And, the possibilities of divorce and everything else. And he said, "I would trade everything I have to have what you have." He said, "You and your wife and your kids are beautiful." And he said, "I would trade everything to have what you have." And I just remember thinking, wow, here's me looking at everything has, and he's saying it's nothing compared to what you have, right? Because we had a great home and great family, great kids. I would imagine that is probably hitting David at this point, right? He's thinking about his entire life. He's thinking about his quest, his mission, his kingdom, his responsibilities, everything that he's accomplished. And he's looking at what has happened to his 3 kids over the past few years and thinking, I would have rather died than Absalom.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Mm.
So
we have to get out ahead of those things. A lot of the, biblical challenges to us is to make our decisions ahead of time.
Yeah.
To get out ahead of these things, to make wise choices before we get to these points. Don't take your foot off the gas. Don't get lazy. Don't start thinking just because you had victories in the past that you will always have victories. Don't think that you're winning today because you won yesterday. Today's a new day. Jesus says that, right? Jesus talks about it from a worry standpoint. Don't worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to have its own problems. Today has its own problems. Let's worry about today. Let's focus on now. And so we can't get passive in our parenting. We can't get passive in our marriages. We can't get passive in our career path. We can sometimes get just tired and decide we're not going to stay focused. And as a result, the others around us that we are trying so hard to help, they wind up suffering if we move into this place. Instead, we need to get good counselors, and we need to have a new mission, and we need to have a new battles to fight. Once David felt like his battles were done, David just kind of mailed it in from that point on until this battle.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So,
well, that's a good place to end. And hopefully we'll see you tomorrow on the Bible Guys.